Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. In today's episode of remaking my old videos that I could have done better, we're going to talk about a seemingly long forgotten series from the Gameboy Advanced known as the Legacy of Goku. Now, if you haven't seen anything to do with the Dragon Ball franchise, it is important to note there will be some rather large spoilers, as this is based on the manga and anime Dragon Ball Z, created by Akira Toriyama. The Legacy of Goku series consists of three main titles, those being the Legacy of Goku 1, 2, and the third game being called Buu's Fury. The series as a whole follows pretty much all the major plot points from the entire series of Dragon Ball Z, only with a couple little things fleshed out in order to make it more of a game. Developed by Webfoot Technologies back in the early 2000s, making just about every single game in the series pretty much around or above 20 years old, not a lot is known about the entire team at Webfoot. The most I could find online was that it was a rather small team consisting of between 11 to 50 people, at least according to their LinkedIn profile. This would track as they haven't really had any major IPs over the years. They aren't known for releasing bigger games and typically would do more budget related titles. And if anyone lived in the early 2000s, you would know budget usually meant shovelware or just complete garbage. However, the Legacy of Goku series was a diamond in the rough. Sure, the first game was not a flawless masterpiece by any means, but by the time they got to the second and third game, they really honed in what they were trying to do. Gameplay between the three games is basically identical, playing like a top-down action RPG in the vein of Zelda, Illusion of Gaia, or the Legend of Mana series. It's a pretty timeless gameplay style, and it's easy enough to just pick up even after all these years. It isn't particularly complicated, but you mix in the abilities you get with the characters as the series progresses, and it allows for enough variation as for it to not get too stale. Each game isn't overly long, with the first game taking around 8 hours, while the second takes around 15, and the third taking around 12. These games do themselves a service to not overstay their welcome. In a somewhat rushed storyline, the Legacy of Goku 1 follows Goku during his first two major sagas within the anime, following the Saiyan saga and Frieza saga respectively, with the latter being probably the most beloved in the entire franchise's history, as evidenced by the fact they keep bringing Frieza back, while leaving pretty much all other villains to the side. Shout out to Dragon Ball Superhero for finally bringing my plankton sounding ass boy Cell back, because he is my favourite villain. Like the opening episode for DBZ, we start off with Goku going to Roshi's Island in order to see his friends for the first time since the defeat of Piccolo at the end of the original Dragon Ball, only to then have his brother Raditz show up, kidnap Gohan, and thus set into motion the insanity that is Dragon Ball Z and Super. Basically, it follows the plot one-to-one, so we're not going to go too in-depth with the story. Do note some things are definitely fleshed out a little bit worse than you would expect, and some things definitely take a little bit of liberty when it comes to adding in missions, but it is a video game from the early 2000s, so it is what it is. Mechanically, we start out with two attacks, a basic punch, which never changes, and a special move, or in this case, a ki blast to start with. As you progress, you'll gain access to abilities like the legendary Kamehameha and Solar Flare, and although it's a move Goku doesn't use often anymore, it's nice to see it get used in a defensive manner here, because Solar Flare is one of the coolest moves. Also, as a nice little touch, if you do a fully charged Kamehameha, you'll hear Goku shout it out. Beyond the combat, you can move in 4 different directions as the game works on a grid-based system, so whether you walk or fly, you're going to have to deal with these limitations. The flying is a little bit janky, especially in the early days since you can only fly a small amount of tiles, but as the game progresses, this becomes less of an issue. This grid system does cause a couple of issues. Firstly, and arguably the biggest fault of this game, is its hit detection. The grid system, although in theory perfectly fine, does lead to some situations where you'll be able to hit your opponent, they can't hit you, and vice versa, which can lead to a lot of unnecessary deaths. Secondly, a lot of the fights do feel pretty samey as they either punch and pray or ki blast and run away. Although I really like the Frieza fight, and especially the Super Saiyan transformation, because I think they absolutely nailed it, for what it is, it's pretty boring. So honestly, I don't really recommend playing Legacy of Goku 1, unless you do just want to smash through it relatively quick. Again, thankfully it is a shorter game. However, in saying all this, by the time you do get to the second game, things get a whole lot better. Moving into the second game, the Legacy of Goku 2 improves on pretty much everything the first game had built. Graphically, although mostly the same, it has seen improvements in certain aspects from the characters and their animations, as well as some of their character portraits, which can be a little bit off-putting. It's not all bad though. Chi-Chi doesn't have a single thought going through her head, and I love her. Another massive improvement is the locations we get to visit. I do understand in the first game, given the arcs it follows, it is going to be rather limited. However, since we have the Android and Cell saga here, we actually get to play around a lot more in the actual world that Dragon Ball Z takes place, allowing us to travel pretty much anywhere. The general movement is also greatly improved. No longer do we have the grid system, as we have moved to an 8-way system, which gets rid of pretty much all of the previous problems. Further improved was the game's pacing along with enemy variety. Overall, 2 is just a lot more enjoyable to play. And this is because you get more side missions, actual missions, having multiple characters, increased level caps, more collectibles. Just everything here is so much more improved than what it was in the original, and you could not ask for a better sequel. It's not to say the game is without its flaws, though for the most part they are pretty minor and they can come down to personal preferences. For me, I would say the grind at level 50 with every character can definitely be a little bit too tedious for its own good, even if it is pretty rewarding with secret bosses and collectibles. The grind is massively improved from the original game, however, as the combat feels way more responsive. Plus, you add in animations moving from single punches to combos, it makes the game visually just feel so much better. Furthermore, having multiple different special attacks on every character you play means mechanically things get to stay fresh, especially when you swap between them. It could be more in depth than what it actually is, to be honest, but for the most part, I think Webfoot have really nailed things here, especially when it comes to adding in the stat system, as the three main stats we get access to make the game feel a lot more like a proper RPG, and with characters having specific stats that they're best at, it makes them all feel pretty unique, again helping with that really tedious grind. And up to this point, I can't recommend this game enough. The gameplay is smooth, it looks and feels incredible. It is 100% the better game of the first two releases in the series, and I have no major or barely any complaints when it comes to this game, other than getting Wombo combo to death, which is 100% my own fault because I'm an idiot. So can Boo's Fury one-up Legacy of Goku 2? Personally, I find the third game to be the best in the series, improving upon pretty much everything the second game did. Having the ability to now equip gear changes absolutely everything. This, in my opinion, is the single best thing about this game compared to the previous ones, as being an action RPG, now we actually have some proper RPG mechanics, allowing us to spec our characters to specific fighting styles. Granted, still could be more in depth, but for a Game Boy Advance game, it is what it is. If we want someone to be super fast and agile, maybe we want someone to be a hard hitter that sacrifices some of their ki to do so, or even someone who specializes in ki attacks specifically, we now have the ability to actually make that happen. You'll get 4 equipment slots consisting of body, arms, legs, and an accessory slot. Each category will have tons of different items you can collect, and you can basically mix and match to your heart's content. Now, granted, like a lot of RPGs, obviously late game items do tend to be way better than what you get early on, especially the Goku hat, probably arguably the most broken item in the game, as for every level you get while wearing it, you gain an extra ability point, meaning it is a must while grinding. They also added weighted gear, which depending on how heavy it is will increase the XP gain, making leveling and grinding much less of a chore, and also thematically fits the show. Another massive improvement, and something you might not necessarily care about, are the character portraits. They look so much better than they do in the second game. No one looks really weird. Flying from location to location has seen a massive improvement as well, as now we have the ability to go into optional encounters, meaning there is just more to do than just go from A to B. I also really appreciate the fact that money is now in the game, since now we can go to stores in order to buy equipment or items. These items can be either food or drinks in order to replenish ki or health respectively. This means fights, although a little bit easier, are definitely a lot more reliable than what they used to be. Also, this is the only game with a bloody block button. It took 3 games, but they figured it out. So for what it's worth, that's why I consider Boo's Fury to be the best of the 3. It has more characters, more locations, more techniques, more abilities, just more of everything that I loved about the second game. I can still understand why people like the second game more, but for me, the third game is king. So with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of our video on the Legacy of Goku series. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have a favorite character within the Dragon Ball franchise, let me know in the comment section below. Krillin will always be my favorite. I love the little ball bastard. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to go that extra step, you can hit that subscribe button. If you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi from just $1 a month like these lovely people here. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.